right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a post-draft edition of the AFC Northcast. I am Joey, and I am joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host, Chad.
I can officially say it now. My team is better than your team. I can say it. Now that we have got the draft all set up, I can look at the team, I can look at the rosters, and I can say, yeah, still better because we won the division last year. So still better. Nothing's changed.
That's good. That's good. Well, we'll hit the your team part of that this week, and then we'll hit the my team part of that next week. What we're going to do here is we are going to split the division in two so that we don't end up talking about 40 guys in a 3-hour long ridiculous podcast. And so we're going to cover the Steelers and the Browns drafts today.
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
I'm ready as well. And as the de facto Browns, I guess we'll say representation.
Yeah.
I am drinking tonight
Foster.
a Sweet Josie Brown Ale because the Browns draft was sweet. Boom.
It's all there on the can. It's all there on the can. I love it.
Undeniable.
I love it. Have you had that one yet? Is this going to be your first sip of it ever?
I have had it before. It's delicious. It's good. I'm a brown ale kind of guy. I'm not real big into like the hoppier stuff, and I'm not real big into like the sour stuff. My beer taste is pretty like boring, to be honest.
Okay. You like your malts. That's all right. Celebrate the malt. Well, Joey, my play on the beer I'm drinking isn't quite as obvious as yours is. I'm drinking Duchess de... I used to just throw an N in there that didn't exist. I used to say Duchess de Bourgogne, and I kind of like the sound of that. But that's not what it's actually called, as you can see. When you go to the beer store, it'll be in the international section because it's a Flemish ale from Belgium. Just look for the lady holding the bird. The reason we're drinking this today, Joey, it's a Flemish ale. It's a blend of matured beers that are aged in oak casks. And that's what the Steelers are, right? Like, look, they're not all flash. There's not chocolate cake in this beer. This is just a long-term process, and it's perfection that's acquired over accumulation of successful iterations of doing what you're doing. We're blending, right? This draft class is just an addition. It's adding to the blend that makes the Steelers the franchise they are. And this is about as good as beer gets. I've had this before, and anytime I see it, I buy it. Duchess de, we'll call it Bourgogne. Bourgogne? Do we have any Belgian people that listen to us, Joey? A couple dozen? 100?
I don't know.
We'll get some.
Write us. Yeah. Yeah, that's. I think that's fitting. A lot of the synopses on Steelers draft picks, tough, solid, motor guys, hardworking guys. So that fits. We do have a little bit of news to touch on before we get waist deep in draft talk. It happened after the draft, but the writing was kind of on the wall before the draft, and then really even more so on the wall during the draft. The Ravens have agreed to, I think, a 2-year deal?
Yes.
With Alejandro Villanueva. You may be familiar with him if you're an AFC Northcast listener, because he spent the last 10 years in Pittsburgh.
He was a favorite son of Pittsburgh, no doubt about it. As a franchise that really likes to grab hold of our moral superiority, whether we deserve it or not. Having an ex-Army Ranger on the team was really one of those things we could use to just prop ourselves up against any fan that we were debating about anything. And I am amongst them. Like, I would gladly use that, our token military man, to win a moral superiority debate if I had to do it. Look, I'm not a perfect person, people, okay? We do what we have to do. But he's gone now. We have lost our token, Army Ranger, our perfect example of how great our locker room was because he wasn't a protest guy. He wasn't into protesting. He didn't say anything about it. He just didn't do it. But the locker room for the Steelers held together. They were fine. It's all a testament to the chemistry of the team, all that stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff that happened with him, aside even from his play, which was at a Pro Bowl level for a while. He played left tackle for the Steelers. How do you feel about it, Joey? Are you excited to have him?
I'm happy to have him. The Orlando Brown Jr. trade left a big old hole, and Tyree Phillips is a John Harbaugh guy. That was like the story when they drafted him last year. DaCosta was like, yeah, this was like John Harbaugh loves this guy pick. So maybe we get a little mentor-mentee relationship action going with the vet and the young guy. But, I mean, you'd have to think he's day one of training camp starting at right tackle, even though that's not the position that he has played.
Are you concerned about that at all?
I don't know, because you hear all the time how very different it is, right? And your stance is opposite. Everything is opposite of how you've done it for however many years, you know, your anchor leg and all that stuff. But on the flip side of that, like, he's a veteran and he's been doing it for 10 years. And so I'm not super worried about it. You know, he has recently been a Pro Bowl caliber tackle, and I think he'll be just fine.
I think you should be worried about it. He took like 0 snaps at right tackle during the whole time he was with the Steelers. This isn't a dude that's like 20 years old and has played tackle for 4 total years. Like, he has played it's like his whole career. And I secondarily am thinking, like, is there any chance that Ronnie Stanley isn't as far along as they thought, and maybe he's actually potentially going to play some left tackle?
Sure. I'm sure there's a chance. Maybe.
I just wonder. I just, like, because not only are you taking him out of position, I get it. Like, look, you're doing the same thing, but as a mirror. Like, maybe you'll be fine. But it's also like the Ravens are kind of the opposite of what he's good at. Like, he's not ever been a particularly good run blocking tackle. Like, really not even average. He's like a giant human being. I'm deliberately reaching my arms out of the screen because that's kind of what Villanueva's like. He's got crazy long arms. He's crazy tall. He's like 6'8", and he just has a hard time getting low and like getting leverage and moving people. But what he can do really well, he can like chop arms, and like he can protect the edge. Like, he can catch a defender and keep them from getting momentum. But he's not a good bulldozer guy. So I just wonder what the Ravens are going to do with him, because a lot of times, like, a team will put their kind of better run blocking tackle on the right side conventionally. The Ravens aren't a team that depends on convention. I just, like, really, I hope he does well. I mean, he was a Steeler for a long time and a good one, but I just wonder if he's going to get paid $8 million this year to be a backup.
Maybe. You know, some of the Tyree Phillips stuff that I was listening to happened between the draft and the Ravens signing him. And I was on the road to convincing myself that I was down with Tyree Phillips at right tackle. So all it takes is a little push, and I'm there. But I wasn't quite there when they signed Villanueva, and so now I've kind of shifted gears. It's also possible, and I do not intend for this to lead us down a whole nother path about the Ravens, but it's also possible that Lamar and the offense are developing into something that they haven't been, and they're going to pass more.
Well, that would be ideal. That would be ideal because I think that what we've seen Alejandro Villanueva do for the Steelers over the last 10 years is that when he's at his best, he can mostly erase a team's best pass rusher unless they're basically the best of the best. Myles Garrett always gave Villanueva fits, and so did Carl Lawson. And I have a feeling that I'm going to be very excited to watch him potentially match up against TJ Watt a couple times this year. That will be because I don't think he would have in practice. TJ Watt was mostly on the other side, so I'm sure it happened, but not a ton. So big news. I'm not going to be upset. Like, look, I know it's probably better for ratings if I curse Villanueva out or do something like that, but I think he's going to fail naturally. I think he was towards the end of his time as a Steeler, and I don't think I have any need to get mad at him because I don't think he's really what the Ravens want. I think he's just what was available.
I agree. They needed a body, and it may even be a situation where he doesn't finish the season as a starting tackle. Like, that's very, very possible. The Ravens shuffle guys around constantly.
I will do you one solid, though. I'll curse you out. You and your team can go fuck yourselves because the Ravens waited until about 5 minutes after signing Villanueva would affect compensatory picks. So instead of the Steelers getting maybe a 4th or 5th round next year, they get jack shit.
Yeah.
And the Ravens and Steelers both pay a lot of attention to compensatory picks. So way to watch the clock, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. That was absolutely intentional. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. And that's fine. It's the rules, Yeah. It wasn't cheating. I'm not alleging cheating. I'm just saying you're bad people. That's it.
That's fine. I can live with that.
All right. I'm sick of talking about the Ravens. We have to do that all next week.
That's right.
Let's move on.
Let us move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers had 9 draft picks in this draft, which is a lot. That's a haul for a team that started 11-0, won the division last year, bringing back a more than likely Hall of Fame quarterback, a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate, maybe even 2 Defensive Player of the Year candidates. Maybe. And how did you feel overall before we just run down specifics about the Steelers draft?
Well, look, you listened to me talk. Mm-hmm. You all did. We know that I wanted a center, and I named some, and spoiler alert, none of them are on the Steelers. So that was a tough pill to swallow. Other than that, I think I like it is a vanilla style draft. Like it's like the beer, right? Like it's going to be hard to get really fired up about this draft looking at it from 30,000 feet because the most exciting player, all we get to hear for 30 straight months is how bad of a value it was to take him. So that leads into the first round pick at number 24. And not to pat ourselves on the back, but Joey, pat yourself on the back. We both called this one. Najee Harris, picked by the Steelers, running back out of Alabama. I just looked it up. I told you I could do this all at the same time. He's just over 6 feet tall. He's 230 pounds. He is a big old Steeler running back, just the way you imagine it. He's got the light feet. He'll bulldoze you when he has to. You gotta hate being a linebacker trying to tackle this guy out in space, because if you watch the highlights, there's two results. He either lowers his boom, he will just lower that shoulder and drive you for 5 yards and then fall down, or he'll give you the old okey doke and just jump over you. He loves a good hurdle. Najee loves a good hurdle, and he'll do it when you're not even going low. He doesn't give a shit. He jumps over people that just are like lowering their head a little bit, like, and he does it. He lands on his feet and he keeps on going. His probably number one highlight came in I guess it was the semifinal against Notre Dame, and he caught a pass out in the flat, and the Notre Dame corner doesn't even really like dive the way corners that are smart usually do when they try and hit a guy as big as him. He kind of just gives like this little like 1 inch kind of lean. Najee jumps right over him, somehow lands in bounds, and goes for 50 yards. Like, he's so good, Joey. He's so good. He's just so good. So, do we need to spend any time talking about how it was stupid to take a running back, or should we talk about him more as a player?
No, it's pointless to talk about. They've already taken him.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to talk anymore about value or this or that. Like, he is the best running back in this draft class.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Sorry, Jacksonville, Travis Etienne. He ain't it. Like, he's a nice little player, Travis Etienne, but like, Najee Harris does everything. He catches passes. He can hit the home run.
It's pretty infrequent.
He's physical. Yeah, he doesn't have like the track speed, right? But no. Like, so he's probably not going to be like the 75-yard run guy, but he could very well be like the 45-yard run guy, you know, like, that's a thing. And yeah, he fits the Steelers brand. He's big and physical and does his best work between the tackles. Like, he's smart. He doesn't get blown up for tackles for a loss behind the line of scrimmage. You know, like, he salvages what he can out of plays and doesn't take huge losses. Like, he's great.
Yeah. My other favorite highlight of him, and I'm going to lean towards the receiving, because I think most people know that he like had 1,400 yards and led the football, whatever. He led the SEC in rushing. He didn't lead the country. There's always some little school guy that does that. But my other favorite highlight of his was actually against a linebacker from LSU by the name of Patrick Queen last year, who he ran. He doesn't run a lot of fancy pants routes. He gets compared a lot to Le'Veon Bell, but don't expect fancy pants route running right out of the gate. He just runs your standard out into the flat, or he'll turn it upfield pretty aggressively on what I believe that you will call a wheel route. And that's what he ran against Patrick Queen last year. And frankly, like, Patrick Queen is fast, and he kept right up with him. He never really beat Patrick Queen, but what he did was he turned his body. He has great body control, and he leapt and he took the ball away from Patrick McQueen, even in good coverage, and landed for a touchdown. It's a really nice play, and look, I liked the fact that it was Patrick Queen. That's part of the reason I chose it, you know, because he's your guy. But look, it was good coverage, and he has good body control. He does all that. And the other thing that I love about him, because Ben Roethlisberger, he can be accurate, but he has his off days. When Najee is going out in the flat, it's a very underestimated skill, keeping your balance as you're either turning your back to upfield or figuring out which way you're going to get the ball from. Najee never looks anything but at ease doing this. I've never seen him stumble. I've never seen him lose momentum. He'll catch the ball and do a spin move the other way, or cut in, or act like he's going to slow down and then beat the linebacker to the corner. He's very comfortable catching the ball in awkward positions, which running backs are asked to do a lot in the flat. So, look, this guy's going to contribute on all three downs. That's what the Steelers want. He's a winner. He's decisive behind the line of scrimmage, which is why I think the Steelers' offensive line, you're going to hear a lot about this, but they don't have to be really good this year. They just have to be pesky. Like they just have to hold their blocks as long as they can because Najee's going to decide really quick and then he's going to turn it upfield. Like he's not going to make you push a guy 5 yards. He'll set your block up for you and he'll make a quick decision. So he's gonna make the offensive line better, frankly, by the way he sets up blocks. If I was going to leave you with one final thing, it's that this guy's a gamer. I don't do a lot stat wise. This might be the only thing I do tonight stat wise. I'd like to give you some stats from Najee Harris's final 3 games as a college football player. So he played Florida in the SEC championship game. He had 36 touches for 245 yards and 5 touchdowns to just pants Florida and go to the college football playoffs, where they played Notre Dame. He had 19 touches for 155 yards, including that 50-yard catch. So Notre Dame had a pretty good defense. They did a pretty okay job against him. And then Ohio State, pretty reliable defense to draft 10 players off of every year. 29 touches, 160 yards, 3 TDs. He played all the best players. He played all the best teams. And he looks like he's the best. So Steeler Nation, get excited. He's awesome. And he's a sweet dude. He's sweet dude. He threw a draft party at the foster home or the homeless shelter that he spent like 2 years at as a kid, instead of like buying a gold bracelet or something, which he probably did that too. But like, dude, he's just a guy that remembers where he came from, appreciates where he's at. He's going to be an easy guy to root for in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm going to hate it. It's going to be the worst.
Yeah, but, you don't have to hate it until we beat you, which, might not happen. So we'll see.
We'll see. So, yeah, very, very good pick. A lot of the pundits are talking about, like, value. The Steelers' next pick was at 55, and it's not like they were dealing with like 2 seconds and 2/3 and had room to move in those rounds there. Like he wasn't going to be there, and it turned out Etienne wasn't going to be there either at 55, and so you're looking at rolling into the season with Benny Snell, Anthony McFarlane, Jalen Samuels, whatever that running back room looks like, and then like a mid-round running back instead of taking the best running back in the draft class, filling a hole in your offense that was probably the Achilles heel of the football team last year.
Yeah, and we don't have to spend tons and tons of time on it, but remember last week I did mention like the Steelers tried the mid-round thing every year for the past 4 years. It's just not as easy to draft Alvin Kamara as many fans might think. So, they got a winner. Like, this guy's a winner. We'll see how long he's on the team for. He is absolutely on the team this year, and you can expect him to have the ball in his hands all the time. So, if you like following the ball like the rest of us, you're going to see him a lot. He's number 22, I think. That's the pictures that have been taken.
All right, moving on to the second round. Another gentleman that we discussed in our draft preview pod. Tight end from right there in Pennsylvania, the State University of Pennsylvania, Pat Fryermuth.
Yeah. So this is the guy that I think is going to make a lot of people like pretty bummed about the draft, because it was Kyle Pitts, and then nobody had ever heard of anybody else. And look, we talked about him. I'm going to give myself half a point because I didn't put him in my official pick because I didn't want him either. Look, none of us wanted him. I get it. But he's our baby now. And so we're going to raise him like he's our own. And honestly, I think it's okay to feel like good about this. Like, look, you can say like, oh, we take the best player available. We don't take players for need. Sometimes like you have to build a team. This team has Eric Ebron for 1 more year and nobody. Pat Fryermuth was the second best tight end in this class. It was a very clear cut that it was him. Mm-hmm. And again, he's a Steelers type guy. He was the best all around tight end in his class. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that he's going to come in and he's going to block. Certainly not Myles Garrett. He's not even a block Tack McKinley by himself on the other side. Like, he's not ready for that. They almost never are. Tight ends don't come out of college ready for that. I'm not even going to try and tell you, Joey, that he's ready for that. But I'll tell you what, he's 6'5". He's 250 pounds. He's got the body for it. So he's going to get trained up by basically his foster dad, because Alfredo Roberts and him look like they're related at the pro day when they're doing workouts. Like, if he can't take coaching from Alfredo Roberts, the Steelers tight end coach, he can't take coaching. And that's not what the reports about this guy say. Like, he's excited to do whatever. He set a bunch of Penn State receiving records, only playing 2.5 years. I'm going to say that look, don't expect a Heath Miller career, because that's too much to expect from anybody that's never played an NFL game. But think about the style. He gets open almost in spite of the things that you see. He doesn't appear to be that fast, but he gets open. And I think what I noticed, I watched his highlights a couple times and then a longer video on him too, because I just wanted to get it, and I also wanted to get excited. When he is up against a linebacker, he gives these jab steps at the edge of his route, and he just gets them going the wrong direction. He gets linebackers like the Warner guy that was Ohio State's top drafted linebacker going, like, he'll get 5 yards open, like on a simple 5-yard route. Like, he's really nifty with his feet for a guy his size, even though he's not necessarily fast. And he's smart. My second favorite highlight of his was on an out route that turned into a broken play, and he was in between two defenders, and he very quickly turned his out route up the field, almost like an out and up, but it was an accident. He just saw the broken play. Nobody followed him, and it turned into like a 40-yard gain. So, look, Pittsburgh likes those broken plays. We don't do it as much anymore, but Ben Roethlisberger likes tight end safety valves. And Pat Fryermuth is a smart guy that understands zone coverages and how to get into space when the play breaks down, so we like that. He's also pretty physical. And the best highlight you'll ever see on this guy is he catches I guess they sent him out in the flat, almost like a running back route, and he caught it and turned up the field, and this poor corner from Memphis tried to lower the shoulder on him. Oh my God. I think he put him in the shadow realm, Joey. He blasted this character into smithereens. He is a load to tackle. So yeah, he's going to be a good player, and he's an above average blocker. I think the thing is he's a tight end. So looking forward to this year, what is he really going to contribute? I think we have to temper our expectations a little bit. You can have pretty outlandish expectations for Najee Harris. Over 1,000 yards. Break the Steelers' rookie rushing record, because Franco Harris did it in 14 games. He's going to have 17 games. Like, do crazy things all the time. Score a bunch of touchdowns. Elongate Ben Roethlisberger's career by 2 more years. Like, these are the kinds of things you can start to hope for. Pat, you just want to get him acclimated. We want a little bit of acclimation this year. And, hopefully a couple 2 tight end sets, and he's going to be a good player, though. He's going to have a career here. So this is a guy you just needed on the team. Ho-hum, but...
Yeah, he's a solid player. And I think the sooner he can supplant Eric Ebron, the happier you are with that. He has good hands. He runs good routes. He lined up a lot in college in the slot as a 6'5", 250 guy. So, He's savvy. He gets open. Heath Miller, I think, is a really good comparison. Obviously, the career of Heath Miller has to be a ceiling for this guy. But, yeah, he is also the type of guy that manages to have a whole career in one place, because he's good enough to stick on, but he's not probably ever going to be top 3 tight end in the league, getting franchise tagged and seeking the big money, shit like that. cap casualty type stuff.
It feels unlikely. It does feel unlikely at this point. And if you're like one of those Steeler fans that likes to talk to people and act like you're, you know, what's that dude's name? Warren. What's
Sharp.
the Warren guy's? Yeah, Warren Sharp. And you're like, dude, the Steelers are going to run so much 12 personnel, and Pat Fryermuth is going to be sending your linebackers into the next county. Just don't get crazy, because I'm telling you, like, in college, there were plays when he like literally was driven backwards by like safeties sometimes. Like
he's a willing blocker.
Yeah,
but
he's got some work to do there. Yeah. And that's the thing. He's still better than basically everybody else except for Tommy Tremble, and he was so much kind of better at everything else that he's a better player. And he's like 5 inches taller than Tommy Tremble. So I wanted Tommy Tremble. Look, I love you, Tommy Tremble. I'd have happily seen you in the black and gold. It's just not the way it happened. So again, I think like this, you call this a successful pick. And Tommy Tremble, like talking about the draft, like these guys weren't available when the Steelers picked their next time. So like they took a player that's good when they had to take him. That's just that's the way it is. Next round.
I agree. On to the third round. Pick number 87. The Steelers draft Kendrick Green, guard, Illinois.
Yeah. So the first thing you can just edit about that statement is guard, because he ain't
guard
playing
center
no guard for the Steelers. Yeah, he's gonna be he's gonna be competing to play center for the Steelers. I don't have his measurables up right now, but my computer's slow. I think it's gonna eventually happen. He's shorter. Much shorter than the Steelers usually. I think he's just over 6 feet tall. He's kind of got shorter arms. That's one of the things that drives a lot of these players to end up playing center in the NFL. Centers don't have to do a ton of pass blocking on their lonesome, so they do a lot of help blocking and try to, you know, pick up blitzing linebackers like Vince Williams or whatever if possible. Here's the thing, dude. He is an athletic son of a biscuit. He's so fast. He's got these crazy feet. I don't know, like, what am I trying to? Oh, and he's mean. He is a son of a bitch. The best highlight of his play, I think this is one of the plays he's a guard, and it's like a 3-man rush, maybe 4. So there's a couple double teams happening. So he helps the tackle on his left side handle a defensive end, and they've got it all taken care of. So he releases, and he kind of keeps his head on the swivel, which is a big-time center quality that you want, and he's got it. And he looks over, and he sees his center and right guard kind of doing fine with this other guy. He says, fine isn't good enough. And he runs over and plasters this guy in the ground, blindsides him. Super dick move. And that's what we want. We want that. We want a guy that's looking around saying, who can I put his ass on the ground? Who do I want to have to get up onto his hands and knees because he's fat, struggle to his feet, and not want to play the next play? That's who we want. We want a guy like Kendrick Green that wants to do that to people. And I was talking about that out of Quentin Miners. We talked about that out of Tevin Jenkins. It was a quality we were looking for. We just didn't know about Kendrick Green. Look, I've been celebrating myself so far. We're not celebrating me right now. I didn't know about him. Maybe wouldn't have brought him up anyway because he wasn't, we're only talking about the first couple picks mostly.
We have one less man than the Bengals scouting department, all right? We're spread thin here.
Dude, no kidding. Like, it's amazing. But aside from being mean, I like can't emphasize enough how fast he is. He had a highlight. If you can imagine this, he's playing left guard, and the player to his right is on the right side of the center. So he's basically like 2 gaps, as they would say in the NFL, away. And they run like a sweep play where everybody on the line sort of pushes to the right. Kendrick Green is able to get all the way to the other side of the player on the center's right in order to seal him off on the right side. So he like gets all the way across the face of that player who he's not even close to being lined up against. So he's got like a level of mobility that's like almost unheard of. He played defensive end for a
Mm-hmm.
while before converting to guard over the last maybe like 3 years. So he's got some crazy traits that could make the Steelers able to do things they really like to do. Marquise Pouncey, he had those traits, right? Super able to get on the move. He could snap
Mobile.
that ball
Mm-hmm.
and then pull. Like, you don't get a lot of guys that can do that. Marquise Pouncey was a lot bigger than Kendrick Green, so don't just go saying I'm putting him in the Hall of Fame yet. Um, so
Wow, dude, would you just
that's the
put
upside,
Marquise
right?
Pouncey in the Hall of Fame?
Dude, he's a Steelers center, so that's how it works.
Okay.
Um, so that's the upside, right? The upside is you got a guy that's super fast. He's also like he's a weight room freak. So I think it was the Dane Brugler thing. He can squat like 700 pounds. So like once he figures out his technique a little better, like he can anchor. You can send one of those big buddies up and he'll be able to get it done. Not his strength yet. He's got the short arms. He's got to work on that technique because when you're short like that, you got to win right away. You got to get your hands chopping, doing cool shit. Otherwise, they get in you and they just drive you right backwards, which does happen to him a little bit. He also falls down. Look, nobody's perfect. He's a faller downer. It's really bad. It's a really bad quality. And if it happens a lot in the NFL, he's not going to start at center for the Steelers. Like if he's falling down at training camp all the time, like he's just not going to be on the field. It's going to be um, Finney, right? Is Finney the one? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Finney's the one that re-signed. No, I get them mixed
BJ
up.
Finney?
Yeah,
Is that
okay. Filer and Finney. Filer left. Finney's come back. That's fair. That's a fair point of confusion. Get off my back. So yeah, he's gonna not fall down. If he doesn't fall down and he displays that aggression and foot speed, he's gonna start at center for the Steelers day one. I would expect him to start at some point this year.
I think that's reasonable for a third round pick if you draft well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
the biggest thing that stuck out to me was his movement in the run game. That and he's a very active blocker. And you touched on both of those already. Like those are two big things. Those are two things that Pouncey did well. So,
yeah, yeah. The Steelers are like they're a if it's not broken, don't fix it
mm-hmm.
institution. So they're more than happy to draft players that reflect players they've had in the past. Um, yeah, they're not
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel.
Boom, Heath Miller. Boom, Pouncey.
Yeah, so that's fun. Three players that you can expect to make an impact, right? 3 rounds, 3 players. These are all people we want to see play this year. To varying degrees of impact. We'll see, but hopefully a fair amount. That brings us to round 4. Try and kind of get a little bit
Yeah.
tighter here because they probably won't play as much. And the Steelers drafted a offensive tackle by the name of Dan Moore Jr. out of Texas A&M. Um, Look, we talked about it. There was a lot of tackles this year, and a bunch of them had little tiny arms like me. They just and so they're like, is this guy gonna play guard? What's he gonna do? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Dan Moore Jr. He's big. He's tall. He's got long arms. He's got all the tackle stuff that you look for in order to build a player. And they were able to get him in the 4th round. He's got some athleticism to him too. When you watch his tape, they run a lot out of the shotgun, which the Steelers will do if Ben Roethlisberger has anything to say about it, because he doesn't want to touch anybody's butt anymore. He's done with that. Um, and Dan Moore Jr. shows some pulls where he comes all the way from his left tackle spot, all the way around the right side of the line to make a block at the second level. So he'll run for you. He'll run for you and he'll finish a block. So again, like this is a guy that if he can get on the field, he's got the athleticism to do some fun stuff for you in the run game. And that's like pretty much to me the pro. Dane Brugler in his analysis used the language catcher in the pass game, meaning he kind of like lets the pass rushers get into him, um, which is a shame when you have really long arms. You want to kind of hold them at bay and give them a good punch and halt their momentum. So that's kind of what he's got to work on, because the way he gets beat is that people get up in him and then they just bully him right back into the cornerback. And well, there's some pretty strong edge rushers. Well, Myles Garrett in particular, that he's more than capable of doing that to anybody. So that's what he's going to be working on. Hopefully he's a backup tackle for the Steelers this year.
All right. And then moving to the second, fourth round pick, Buddy Johnson, Mr. Moore
So I'm pretty
Jr.'s
sure
teammate at Texas A&M.
Yeah. I think what happened here is that in the fourth round, they're flipping through the Steelers draft board, and what they were actually holding was the Texas A&M depth chart. And so here we are, 2 straight Texas A&M picks. And then they realized, oh my God, that's not even a draft board. That's just Texas A&M, whatever.
That's a press guy. Oh no.
Buddy Johnson's cool. He's again, like, look, second, fourth round pick. This guy, he's got the Steelers Depot kind of referred to him as a Vince Williams style player. He will see running back, get running back. He's a straight line kind of guy. He's a form tackler. He's easy to watch when you like defending the run. Like that's what you like. But he's not just like that. He led his team in tackles for loss, forced fumbles, and interception TDs this year. And he actually had my favorite highlight of his was a play that against Florida where Kyle Trask, the quarterback, rolled out to the right. Kyle Pitts ran back to the left across the field, and Trask tried to throw over the top across the field to Pitts. And, our boy Buddy Johnson stayed with him and broke up the pass in the end zone, which, not a lot of people can say that to their name this year against Kyle Pitts. And some of the people that he burned got drafted a lot higher than Buddy Johnson, So, dude, he's a capable guy. He's an inside linebacker. We talked about it last week. It's a position that the Steelers lack depth in. They did re-sign Vince Williams, and they have Spillane, but good to have youth there. And it's really good to have youth there that knew that they were going to make the NFL playing special teams. Despite the fact that this guy was the team's leading tackler on defense for the last 2 years, he kept playing special teams. Over his career, I think that the number was he logged like 560 special team snaps. He's going to play for you. So guess what? This guy's going to be on the Steelers this year. Like, I'm just telling you. And he might be on the Steelers instead of one of our favorite TV names, Ulysses Grant III, because similar role here, and Ulysses has had a lot of trouble staying healthy. So if Ulysses gets an early training camp injury, look for Buddy Johnson to just say, I can do all that shit, and get right there on the team, and then get activated too. This is a guy that's not just going to be on the team. He's going to be playing on Sundays, chasing down punts and doing all the fun stuff that we don't pay a lot of attention to because we're getting another plate of nachos.
Yeah, and the Steelers last year dealt with a shitload of injuries in that linebacking core, and he's one way that I saw it put is he's kind of like a classic 3-4 inside linebacker. Like he's at home. Yeah, we already hit him with the Vince Williams comp. Like he's at home in the backfield in the run game. Like that's his bread and butter.
Yeah, he's pretty good at navigating traffic. We're going to talk about a few inside linebackers over the course of these episodes, and I would say that he is less dependent on being in a bunch of space than some of the other linebackers we'll talk about. He can navigate the traffic and the mess around the line of scrimmage pretty well. Kind of like tight ends with blocking. Most inside linebackers take a year or two before they're really good at actually shedding blocks once people get connected to them. So I'm not telling you that he's going to toss a left guard off of him and make a crazy tackle or anything, but he's pretty savvy that way. He's not afraid to be physical, so he's a good player.
Definitely. All right, up next, my favorite name in the divisional draft. In the 5th round, pick number 156, defensive tackle from Wisconsin, Isaiah with 2 H's. Loudermilk.
Yeah. So I had never
Defensive
heard of this
tackle.
guy. I had never heard of this guy, and I'm trying to find out his stuff right now. Um, he's a
So,
big defensive tackle. He's long. He's tall. He's kind of the mold that Steelers Depot says he's the body type the Steelers look for, which is why, despite the fact that Dane Brugler gave him a draft grade of priority free agent, the Steelers traded a 4th-round pick next year to move up to the 5th round and get him. Um, yeah, it's fair to have some questions about the decision making here, but look, the Steelers have successfully unearthed talents that other teams didn't notice. La Javon Hargrave, Stephon Tuitt. These are all players that were drafted much earlier than Loudermilk, but they seem to have some idea of what they're doing, which is great because when I watched his tape, I was like mostly really disappointed. He has he has one awesome highlight where he just like bulldozes the Michigan State center and then envelops the quarterback. I'd say there's like everybody's favorite sack is the one where the quarterback doesn't see it coming and then they look like they killed him
yeah.
because they hit him so hard. But sometimes I think maybe my second favorite sack is when your really big guy rushes right up the middle and the quarterback sees him coming and sort of just kind of curls up into a ball and then they envelop him like a giant bear. And that's what Loudermilk does in this sack. And it's really good. And when he gets a one-on-one block situation, he's pretty nifty. He can rush a gap pretty quickly, and he can overpower a blocker. What I didn't like is that for a big, long, supposedly strong guy, and I'm watching his highlights, people. I wasn't deep diving into the Wisconsin tape. He seemed to me to get washed out pretty easily anytime he was double teamed, which is like incredibly common when you play in the interior of the defensive line. So to me, like honestly, I think he could maybe get cut. Like I think that's like a realistic scenario here. I think the Steelers are hoping he pushes a guy like Isaiah Buggs and I don't even remember the name Mondo. You know, maybe practice squad. He needs to get stronger. If he can get stronger and he can take coaching, maybe he becomes kind of a rotational piece. I wouldn't expect it this year. If he's on the field, we're probably not doing good things. That's my inclination. And I'm prepared to say nice things about other defensive tackles that were maybe taken later than him. So, sorry.
All right. 6th round. Inside linebacker from the U, Quincy Rochet.
Yeah, probably Miami's best pass rusher.
Oh.
Miami had two pretty highly lauded pass rushers taken in the 1st and 2nd rounds of the draft. Rochet, though, is the guy that if anyone is saying nice things about the Steelers draft, they're all saying Quincy Rochet, what a pick by the Steelers. This is the one time they got the value. And then it's an edge rusher, and everybody knows the Steelers like edge rushing, especially if it's a national reporter that only has a very superficial understanding of the team. They're like, oh, yeah, Steelers sack people a lot. Edge rusher, this is smart. Here's the thing, though. It is smart. He's really good. He played at Temple for a few years and basically annihilated all the competition there, was the conference player of the year, got his degree and was like, well, this is too easy and I still have a year of eligibility. So he went down to Miami and just kept on sacking people. He kept on tackling people. He kept on sacking people. He didn't get the same exact production that he did at Temple. I think he finished his college career with like 50 something tackles for loss, 30 something sacks. I mean, this is a productive guy. And a bunch of them came this year for Miami. I think my favorite play, though, of his wasn't even a sack. It was a play against Pitt, and it was a sweep to the left. And the tight end for Pitt tried to chip him, and he dispatched that tight end with no effort. And then the left tackle reached him and he was able to also disengage the left tackle and make a tackle for a loss on the running back. And the reason that that struck me is because I had read a little bit about him, and he's undersized. I think he weighs like 240, something like that. So it's going to be tough, right, as an NFL edge player to absorb a block from a 300-pound top athlete and then maybe make a tackle. But he did it, against a Division I opponent. So I was impressed by that. A little bit of edge setting, a little bit of physicality, not just shooting a gap, stuff like that. The other compliments you'll hear about him are his hand usage. He's got some, depending on your age, I'll just go from oldest to newest. A little Bruce Lee, maybe a little Jackie Chan, maybe a little Jet Li. He just chops you. He'll chop those arms, get some good leverage on you. He's not going to let you grab him up. He's too quick for that. He's too nifty. He's got the hand usage. He's a savvy player. So he's going to be good. He's going to play. He might be the third outside linebacker for the Steelers, which means he's the first one in the game when somebody breaks their foot or gets out of breath. So get ready for a 6th-round pick to be on the field.
There you go. Tony Jaa. Have you ever heard of him? You know anything about Tony Jaa?
Is he the mixed martial arts guy? I feel like I've seen some movies from him. What's his movies?
The Protector is his big one. He's a good one.
He's Tony Jaa.
We'll talk about him. You look him up.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, 30 and a half sacks.
Sounds
he did have an interception on Trevor Lawrence, so he can make a play on the ball.
Eat shit, Jacksonville.
I wanted to mostly focus my highlights on his Miami play because they played top tier opponents, but he had a pass rush when he was on Temple where he did. I think it's something that Ngakoue was known for, where he gets one arm into the chest plate of the tackle and just one arm rushes him right into the quarterback.
They call that the long arm. Chris Long was talking about that last week on his podcast.
Well, again, not the kind of thing you expect from an undersized guy, but it's in his book. So
a little insight to that, it actually is 4 undersized guys, right? Because they're smaller and so their arms may not be longer. Using one arm allows you to play longer and get into an offensive lineman.
Look at that.
Learn that on the Green Light podcast from Chris Long, who is
now
a wonderful human and
he is
really
wonderful.
Enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah. And my one last note is that they did play Clemson this year, and Clemson had a left tackle by the name of Jackson Carman, who you should be prepared to hear a little bit more about next week. And he gave Jackson Carman fits. He didn't record a sack against him, but he did record some nice QB pressures. So a good battle. And Jackson Carman was a 2nd-round pick that we'll talk about next week for the Bengals there. So this guy, he can compete. Don't expect him to be, just your average 6th-round pick. Why are we talking about him still? He's a good player.
All right. 7th round, Trey Norwood, corner, Oklahoma. Any chance this guy makes a team deep on the depth chart?
It's not high. But I think I'll tell you why it's a smart 7th-round pick. He played 7 games this year and he had 5 interceptions. My favorite of which was an out route where he kept his hips in facing the quarterback, and when his player drove out to the sideline, he was able to, without spinning around, drive quickly down the field and cut that route off for an interception touchdown. So people talk about using your hips a lot. When I'm going to talk about that, I don't know as much, so I'm going to try and be really illustrative of that. So yeah, he didn't cross his feet. He didn't spin around. He was able to, in that body position, keep his eyes on the receiver and the quarterback and drive quickly from backpedaling into the route. So he's got some ability that way. He's not a great tackler, but when you're making a late round pick, you might as well take picks that are chances on players that make big plays. And he did that. 5 interceptions in 2020. So if he's in camp making a bunch of interceptions, yeah, he'll be on the team.
Yep. All right. And the last pick of the Steelers draft, Presley Harvin III, punter from Georgia Tech.
Oh, yeah. Presley Harvin. So we didn't get into this because we chose to talk primarily about the first couple days. But if you follow the Steelers closely, this was definitely going to be a possibility. The Steelers cut Jordan Berry last year, picked up another veteran who stank, so they cut him and picked up Jordan Berry. They don't love Jordan Berry. So they took this Georgia Tech guy, and dude, everybody's going to love this guy. He is so big and fat. He weighs two.
Oh, it's that guy.
Yes.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And he can kick the living bejesus out of the ball. He kicks the tar out of it. He had, like a 70-yard punt that was aided by a pretty great bounce. He had like a 65-yard punt that landed at the 5 and bounced straight sideways out of bounds. He can just kick the tar out of it. He is an experienced holder, which if you want to punt in the NFL, you need to hold for field goals, so he can do that. And if you like football and think punting is generally boring,
yes, dude.
Your favorite highlight of his is going to be a fake punt touchdown pass in which he threw the ball over 40 yards in the air. So he's got an arm. He can lob it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So yeah. He's a beefcake. So yeah, the Steelers are going to want him to lose some weight, but like he's always going to be a bigger boy, and we love that about him. We love it about him. We're not going to fat shame him. We love his body. We're going to get him on the ESPN body issue.
He looks like an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Nuts.
So he's going to compete to punt for the Steelers this year, and it was their last draft pick. It was like the 9th to last pick in the whole draft or something like that, maybe even closer to the end. So we're leading into undrafted free agents. So I'm gonna like try and skirt this pretty quick. Every team gets a certain amount of money in signing bonuses every year that they can allot to undrafted free agents. I think it's around $160,000. You don't have to use all of it. It does count towards a salary cap. But that's the money that you can use to lure these players to your team, right? If you give a high signing bonus, then you're going to probably have a player that wants that because they might not even make the team, so they want that money. Many teams have figured out a way to skirt this rule, and that's to guarantee portions of their actual salary. So it's basically a signing bonus because it's guaranteed money. The Steelers almost never do that. So it's pretty impressive that they get such quality undrafted free agents because a lot of the ones that seem like they're the best aren't signing with Pittsburgh because they don't do that. So talking about punters, if you just wanted them to pick up an undrafted one, it might have been hard for them to get him because they probably weren't going to be the team that offered the most money. So it wasn't necessarily an idiotic thing for the Steelers to use the 250th pick in the draft on a good punter.
Their 9th pick or whatever he ended up being.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of undrafted free agents, I wouldn't be a good podcasting awesome guy if I didn't give you one. The Steelers signed 8. Most of them were corners. The one that's getting a lot of attention is Shakur Brown out of Michigan State. A lot of people considered him kind of a mid-round guy, but he ran low and he's small. But he's like a nickel corner type. And this is something that the Steelers are in need of with the loss of Mike Hilton and the promotion of Cam Sutton. So, couple interesting highlights from him. He did have an interception against Illinois, and Kendrick Green tackled him. So that was pretty fun. They'll be teammates now. Maybe they'll be roommates. And he had a really nice 2 interceptions, one on what looked to me like cover 3. So as the corner, he was responsible for the deep third of the field. And he was able to read a post and cut off the route for a touchdown, even though it wasn't his man. That was against Indiana, who was ranked at the time, and it would have been a 3-score game if he let that be a catch. So big play, big opponent, big moment. Similar situation playing Northwestern, who was also ranked at the time. He and the receiver both were coming back to the ball and didn't see each other, and he beat the receiver to the ball, and through the collision was able to hold on to it. And this was in a tie game with like 6 minutes left in the game. So ranked opponent, big play, through contact, play on the ball. Again, talking about making splash plays, these late kind of flyers. You want guys that make big time game-changing plays, and he does it. So look, I don't know if he's going to make the team, but he's the one that everybody's paying attention to, and that's why.
All right. We will move to the second half of our episode to discuss the draft of Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns. They had
basically the best draft in history, right? That's what the headlines seem to.
They had a pick in every round and 2 in the 4th. And before we dive into details, I think the big overarching idea in their draft after the first pick was versatility, especially defensively. Like everywhere you look, it's like, oh, well, like this guy, specifically on the back end, I guess, like lots of linebacker, safety type guys, lots of safety, corner stuff. So, very versatile draft. The pundits are loving their draft. And their draft started in the first round at pick 26 with Greg Newsome. He's a cornerback from Northwestern. He only played 7 games this past season. But he is a sticky pass defender. He is quite good. His knock is that he doesn't have like the elite top tier speed. But in 7 games, I'll read you some statistics. He was targeted 34 times. It gave up 12 catches, which is like not incredibly low, like that doesn't really blow you away. But those 12 catches gained 93 yards. So, like, Greg Newsome is not giving up wide-ass open catches. Greg Newsome is giving up catches where he's right there in the receiver's hip and they're getting tackled at the catch. Along with those 12 catches, he had 9 pass breakups. So, like, he's touching the ball almost as often as the wide receivers catching it. He allowed 1 catch in his final 4 games of the season. A pretty standout corner. He was considered in, like, the top, 3 to 5 guys as far as corners went in this draft. And, the Browns, I think, got a good one. It's a good pick for already having a number 1 lockdown corner in Denzel Ward, like a sure thing. And then Greedy's maybe coming back, and so he adds, I think, quality depth immediately to the Browns secondary.
Yeah, Greedy Wilson had a nerve injury last year, so his situation is very mysterious, which is why this team, went for a corner early. Neither Joey nor I picked this, but if you read other experts, you saw him come up as a possible Browns pick a lot. Joey and I aren't sheep. We make our own choices, so we didn't follow the leadership there. We could have, but we didn't, Look, we make our own choices. This dude is...
Eric Stokes went in the first round, by the way. I just want that on the record.
Well played. Well played. Yeah, and I heard a lot of nice things about him after we talked. So, yeah, look, I know you're a Ravens fan, and that makes you generally very ignorant. But I refuse to let that color my ability to listen to you and keep an open mind. And you definitely taught me about him, so I appreciate that. Yeah. Um, Greg Newsome is a wet blanket. He runs so close to people that I don't understand how people don't trip on the feet all the time. Like
Yeah.
he's that type. Um, which I think is why he only has one interception because nobody would throw at him because they can't see the receiver because he's in the way. Um, I think my favorite highlight of his, and I don't, I my like search thing is lame, so I can't pick up his stuff. But he's pretty fast. He might not be the fastest, but he is fast, and he knows he is. And my favorite clip of his highlights was I can't remember who it was against. Doesn't matter. He's playing off coverage, and the receiver he's guarding runs like a pretty short out route, and he's like 5 yards off. So he rushes it. He takes two quick steps at it, and the receiver turns up the field, which is normally when you give up a touchdown and hang your head in shame. And he just didn't do that. He like turned easily, kept pace with the wide receiver, and just got one of his patented pass defenses on the sideline. And he just has like a really strong recovery ability. It'll be interesting to see if that works in the NFL where receivers are a little bit faster and a little bit slipperier. Um, but he's got some change of direction and stuff going on in size that he's a problem. It actually reminded me a little bit of Darrell Revis, not in certainly not like at his level at this point, but like just in that you rarely throw at him unless he wants you to because he can just be right there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good pick. He's just a good player. And I mean, it's kind of the same as like Najee Harris. Like, when the difference is when you start talking about draft position value and shit like that, but like, he fills maybe not a dire need for the Browns, but he fills a need on a roster that doesn't have a shitload of glaring weaknesses, and he's very, very good. So
Yeah, luckily he gets hurt every year, so just play the Browns late in the year and you don't have to worry about it.
and so moving to the second round, pick 52, the Browns took a guy that we talked about last week, JOK, Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, uh, linebacker ish from Notre Dame. The position that he played in their defense, Notre Dame actually called rover. So he played the rover position, which is kind of like this nickel safety slot corner linebacker mishmash guy. So he is one of these next generation linebackers, like almost in the mold of an Isaiah Simmons. But that comes with the possible downsides of an Isaiah Simmons, which is the size stuff. He's not very big. I think he's like 220 pounds ish. So he's not huge, you know. And so, like, head-on blocks are a concern in the NFL. So, like, size, size is the big concern, and kind of where he fits in a traditional NFL defense, which it appears the Browns are trending towards something less traditional, the way that they continue to release all of their traditional tackling inside linebackers and drafting like they did this year.
Yeah, it's almost like you're reading my notes, but you misread my handwriting because I wrote new age linebacker, not next generation. And you also conveniently skipped over the most important thing I wrote down, which is Patrick Queen, but better.
Oh.
Dude, he is. He just is. Like he's faster. He's certainly better in coverage. They're both going to have the same problems getting through the wash at the line of scrimmage until they develop a little bit better instincts for it. But dude, look, JOK, Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa. By the way, a player that I picked in my official mock draft for the Browns to take. So I am really good at this, people. Like really good.
In the first round,
Um,
right?
I picked him in the first 2 days, and
Mm,
that's when it happened.
fair enough.
So look, surprises happen. Look, I didn't know that he only had two chambers in his heart instead of four,
Yeah.
like they apparently found out, or whatever is
It's
going on
cleared.
there.
It's cleared up now. It's good.
Sure,
He's
of
good.
course they're going to say that. They just gave him $7 million. He is so good in space, and that's going to be the key, right? Like you have to give this guy space to hunt because that's what he needs. He's a flyer arounder. And look, he did a lot of nice things covering slot receivers in college. I don't project that that is going to be something he can do in the NFL. I could be wrong. Um, I think he can certainly cover running backs with his abilities shown in college, and probably some tight ends too. Which is why he's the type of guy that you can have on the field in lots of different sets. And like when teams like I don't know the Ravens or the Patriots put a tight end on the inside and then they have them split out, you don't panic because JOK just follows them and nothing bad can happen. He's surprisingly physical. My favorite highlight of his was against Florida State, and they ran a swing pass, and he was actually guarding a slot receiver, but he read it quickly and got the full head of steam going, and he lowered his shoulder into this kid. Joey, it scared me. It scared me how hard he hit this kid. It was scary. He blasted him. I thought he was going to fall apart. It was, and and not only that, but JOK really is an expert at the shoulder placement. He can like every time you see him lower the boom, it's the perfect tackle. Like he really, really does a nice job with that. He's not out of control. That's what you like. Like look, as a fan, we all care about player safety. But if somebody happens to get hit with the helmet, look, the helmet's hard. It hurts them more. So we might accept that sometimes. I'm not going to say you accept it. I'm not going to say I accept it. But nobody's judging here. JOK, perfect placement of the shoulder. He plays under control despite the super speed that he is actually playing at. So I was really impressed both with the physicality of that play and the technique. Um, he also scored a touchdown against Clemson where Trevor Lawrence pitched the ball to Etienne, and he was already in the backfield, and he just like took it out of Etienne's hands and just scored a touchdown. So he's just cool like that. Like if you want to go
Yeah.
watch some highlights and you don't hate the Browns, suggest you watch his because he's flying around, he's diving to break up passes, he's taking the ball from star players and just trotting into the end zone with it. Like he's super cool. And hopefully his heart explodes so I don't have to ever watch him play the Steelers.
A guy can have dreams, I guess.
I didn't mean that. Look, I just wanted to medically retire. I don't want his family to go into mourning, okay? Just take it easy. Take it easy. He's awesome. Second
Yeah.
round.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
he's
right.
got a little bit of Marlon Humphrey too.
Oh, a little.
That's what I wanted to note. He will do the club arm. He will club that. That's how he gets a lot of his pass breakups is that he want you got to finish that catch when you're playing against JOK. And yeah, that was it.
All right. Moving on to the third pick in the third round, Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver from Auburn. The story on this guy is speed. He is a deep threat. Something that the Browns haven't had really since Baker came around. However you feel about Jarvis and OBJ, like neither of them are like true deep threats. Jarvis especially, definitely not a true deep threat.
Odell is a true deep threat. I will not accept that.
He's not like
I don't
all right,
accept it.
all right. He is a true deep threat. He is not like only a deep threat. That's basically Anthony Schwartz is like your classic like Mike Wallace, to put it in Steelers terms. Like
Oh, so I
he's
understand.
he's a screen guy, jet motion, quick slant, like that skill set. And he's something that the Browns haven't had because Antonio Callaway's a bust and OBJ has been hurt slash can't find rapport with Baker Mayfield to save his fucking life. And he's already working out with Jarvis Landry wherever they decide to work out in the off season. So he needs some polish, but he does all the deep threat guy things well, the over the shoulder catches and things like that. He double catches balls and some things of that nature, which you don't like to see. But he's got some promise. He's a speed guy. It's exciting. The Browns are trying to keep up with the Chiefs. That's what this draft is. The Browns are trying to keep up with the Chiefs because they felt like they were close in the playoffs, and that's the vision right now, I think.
It's really important that we just. I need to editorialize a little bit because this is the pick where the Browns draft people really start to get to the point of excitement where it's like they're getting to the point of climax a little bit too soon here. A little prematurely, you might say. This kid, it starts with the speed, like you said. We're not just saying that. He actually won silver and gold medal at the World Championships running track. Like he is an actual world-class sprinter, okay? So we're not just being colloquial. Like that's what he is, the fastest player in the NFL right now, almost certainly. And when you watch his tape, that's what you see, right? Like I got almost no all 22, so they show the snap, you see him run off the screen, they show the quarterback, and then the camera pans over and he's 10 yards past a poor corner that's hanging their head in shame as he runs into the end zone. Like, or he catches a shallow route and two defenders take bad angles and he runs in between them. Or it's over and over again, right? It's bad angles, it's him 10 yards open. And you get this every year. Every year you see a guy like this and somebody freaks out about him, and it's usually the Raiders. And guess what? They're not that good at football. They're just not. And so I don't care about this guy. I just don't care about him. I think you made a good point. He does track the football well in the air. I tried to pay attention to that. He mostly catches balls that are incredibly easy because he has all the time in the world to do it. But I would say that his ball tracking is definitely good. And my favorite highlight of his, just to emphasize what he is, which is a world-class track athlete, is after one of his easy touchdowns where he took a sweep and a bunch of people just took bad angles.
It's like the 75-yarder.
NFL. What happens less? Yeah, no, this is shorter. It's 20 yards. So my favorite part of the highlight comes after the touchdown. He jumps up to do a chest bump with his teammate, falls on his back. Can't handle the chest bump. So, like, look, dude, this guy, he is not currently a football player. He's just not, in my opinion. He is a track star with world-class speed. If Baker Mayfield can't have chemistry with the player that made the best deep ball catch in the history of the NFL, OBJ, 2 fingers, while getting pass interfered with against Dallas, then this kid, I don't care. A good NFL safety is just like, hey, that guy's got world-class speed. Don't let him get by you. And they don't do it. They jam you at the line of scrimmage. You only get 15 yards before the quarterback has to throw it to somebody else. I'm just not concerned.
No development can happen after today.
Fine. Then I'll be concerned in 2023. Like, he's just not a problem for me. Like, he is maybe the 5th best wide receiver, and he doesn't break tackles enough for me to worry about him in the return game. Like, I just am not. I don't think he's going to do anything this year at all.
All right.
You heard it here first. He's a loser.
All right, moving on to the fourth round. The Browns had 2 picks in the fourth round. The first was James Hudson, an offensive tackle from Cincinnati. And before we talk about anything else, I'm going to mention that he's got 33-inch arms, and that is not long.
Not for a tackle.
He is a power guy. If he catches on in the NFL, it will almost certainly be as a right tackle because of that arm thing. And his weaknesses are the classic power guy that can only do power thing weaknesses. He's stiff. His footwork needs a little bit of work. He's just a guy that played tackle in Cincinnati, and so like he got by on being way more strong than the guys he was up against, basically.
I'm going to agree with you, but also disagree with you a little bit. So he's new to the position. He transferred from Michigan. He's only played offensive tackle for 2 years. He played defensive tackle before that. In my opinion, and in some of what I've heard, he has, I don't know if the technique is great, but he's got quick feet. And what I observed in his highlights is that he doesn't get beat around the edge, which you noted. He does get beat with power. And I watched his, I found highlights of the Senior Bowl one-on-one reps, which are not a great way to think about it, because a lot of times you get help because it's 5 people, not 1. But he got just pantsed twice. One was a bull rush in which he just got driven just straight back into the practice quarterback. And the other one was an inside counter where the guy just like jab stepped to the outside, and it might have taken 1/3 of a second to get to the quarterback. It was ridiculous. But he does hold the edge. I mean, that's generally, like, in terms of athleticism, if you want to be a tackle in the NFL, you have to be able to protect the edge. So I kind of like this pick just because he has literally no pressure to play this year. The Browns' 2 tackles are awesome. One of them is probably going to be awesome on the Browns for the next 12 years. So they can really coach him up and see what they can do. And he really doesn't have to be everything he can be yet. And you could say the same thing about Anthony Schwartz too, right? Like, fine. They both have time. They have time. But people are talking about Anthony in a different way. They're talking about this guy. Like, Anthony brings something to the table that they don't have. He doesn't. OBJ has everything he has and more. Hudson is a developmental pick. He's got some good traits and great feet, and we'll see.
All right, and the second pick of the fourth round was, I'm going to fuck this name up, Tommy Togiai.
I think it's Togiai. Yeah.
Defensive tackle from Ohio State University. Your classic 1 year of production guy. He's explosive. He's quick. He's a little undersized for a defensive tackle. But that seems like maybe it's starting to matter less and less in the NFL. I don't know. You know who else is undersized for a defensive tackle? Aaron Donald. He's pretty good, though.
Yeah.
That is not an endorsement or player comp of Tommy Togiai, by the way.
Good choice. Good choice. Yeah. This became a little bit of a theme for the Browns in this section of the draft. Tommy Togiai has literally 7 games of starting experience. This is like the opposite of the type of player the Steelers draft. And I'm not saying that means he's bad. It's just the opposite of what they do. Hudson was similar, 1 year of starting experience at his position for his team. Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot would call him a squatty body. He's short, he's round, but I'll tell you what, dude. This is why I got pissed about Loudmilk, because I watched his stuff and I noticed that he was getting washed out, and then I watched some of these other defensive tackles later, and I was like, see, that's what you want. This dude doesn't get pushed back. He doesn't matter how many people are blocking him. He is a nose. He's an inside tackle. That's what you're supposed to do on defense. You absorb blocks. You don't give ground. And then he's able to disengage. Even though he's got shorter arms and stuff, he will get off that block to make a tackle on an inside run. And I'll tell you right now, a single blocker is not moving this man. It's just not. That's just not how it works. That's not how science works. It just doesn't happen like that. So don't even consider that as a possibility in your little X's and O's, even in the NFL, in my opinion. Yeah, and like you said, he's nifty. He's got a little bit of closing speed to him, so he can kind of shoot a gap and he can make a tackle behind the line of scrimmage or make a quarterback scurry away, or, if it's Phillip Rivers, fall down. Or Ben Roethlisberger for that matter. I think he's pretty good.
Yeah. Ravens people out there think Kelly Gregg, but with a little bit more like suddenness, a little more athleticism. Similar build though, a little fire plug fella.
Yeah, I like this. I think that the Browns needed competition in that interior. I think that we talked about the space that JOK is going to need. I think they need guys that are going to absorb bodies and make it possible for other people to operate in a lot of space. And he could see the field this year. We'll see. I mean, they've got Andrew Billings. They've got some other players, Malik Jackson, that'll probably operate ahead of him, but you never know.
Yeah. All right. Keeping with the small theme, in the 5th round, Tony Fields, linebacker-ish from West Virginia University, by God. Almost heaven. That's what they say. West Virginia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Blue Ridge Mountain. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, it's not almost heaven.
You get it.
Just not willing to go there.
No.
Not almost anything.
3 years ago, I drove to Columbus, Ohio from here in North Carolina, and we drove through West Virginia. And holy fuck, it's probably the most depressing 2.5 hours I've ever spent in a car. Like that western part of West Virginia where there's nothing. Ugh.
It's a weird state to drive through. Yeah. Small, weird roads. You always feel like you're on the precipice of being lost. Yeah. Lots of really offensive names of mountains and towns. Really? This is not 1886. We need to change this. Yeah, drive through. It's fun.
Yeah,
what do you think of this kid?
Cold pour is a totally different kind of pour. He's a big production guy in his career at West Virginia. He's a tackling machine. I think that he's just another one of these tweener guys where he's going to be possibly nickel safety type of player where you bring in a safety instead of a corner in that nickel package, and he's kind of that type of guy. He's like JOK light, very light. JOK very light to me. Yeah.
Not as good. He is not. He's
absolutely
style. Not as good. It's just important that we just say it outright. That's what I wrote down. And not only not as good, but not even comparable in coverage. He didn't even do any of the things like the JOK did in coverage. So I think that for me, the most important observation of this kid, in a positive light, was his intelligence, maybe, his processing ability. He He actually only started for West Virginia for 1 year, and even so, he made all of their defensive sets and play calls and stuff, according to Dane Brugler. Um, so he's just got processing ability, and I think it shows on his highlights too, because what you'll see happen in most of his best plays is that he just crashes a gap like immediately, right after the snap, and that's when he disrupts a play and makes a tackle for a loss. So he I think his processing ability is really strong. He diagnoses what's happening early, and he can get after it. I think he's more likely to get washed out of plays if the longer they kind of go on. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets cut by the Browns, just because I don't. They already have a bunch of linebackers, and he's literally the exact same thing as a guy that's way better. But he'll get picked up. Like he will be in the NFL. He's too smart. He's just too adaptable.
Alrighty. Second pick of the 5th round. Richard LeCount the third, safety ish, from the University of Georgia. Yeah, he's not super. That's pretty much, you're getting like a special teams guy, nickel depth, which is something the Browns have lacked recently with all the crazy injuries in the secondary. And so, like, maybe he brings some of that to the table. Maybe he doesn't make the team. Maybe he turns into a special teams gunner dynamo.
Yeah, guys like this are super hard to predict. So I'm not going to try and make an exact prediction, but I'll just say this. Like, he dropped to where he dropped because of his size, and then he didn't run very fast. So when you're small and slow, the NFL is just like, well, that's not what we do here. So, but if you watch his tape, he plays with range. Like, he played single high safety, and he had an interception where he started towards the outside, and he read the quarterback's eyes and was able to get back to the center to intercept a post route in the end zone. So he has the ability to cover large swaths of the field, and frankly, he plays with physicality too. In 2019, he had a play where a player by the name of Chase Claypool ran inside slant, and as he was catching a ball, this little son of a bitch smashed him and knocked the ball right out of his hands and gave him a pretty good blow. He rattled him a little bit, and Chase Claypool is a big old boy. So if you can hit Chase Claypool, you can hit NFL people. Like, that's just the way it is. They don't get much bigger than him when you're a safety, hitting receivers. So yeah, this kid might get cut, but he also might just, like, some people don't test the way they play. Like, Juju Smith-Schuster ran a 4.5 8 or 4.6 40, and he has 2 97-yard touchdowns where he ran away from whole defenses. So, like, some people play better in pads, some people don't. I think there's enough in this kid's highlights, and the Browns have enough question marks at safety that I think he has a chance of making the team. But we'll see. I liked his highlights. They were fun. I was surprised when I saw that Chase Claypool hit. I was like, what's this little guy doing?
And we're going to wrap up with Demetric Felton, running back from UCLA. All I really have to say about him, the Browns very obviously have a pretty crowded running back room, especially at the top. He could be like a nice little third down running back at some point. He's a versatile guy. He can catch passes. He's like in college, he was like a wide receiver / running back type of player. So just more offensive versatility. You already get that in spades from Kareem Hunt, and so, if there's a spot for him on the roster, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there isn't maybe practice squad, but I mean he led the Pac-12 in yards. So if you're in the 7th round, there's nothing wrong with taking a kid like that.
Yeah.
At the Senior Bowl, he did a lot of route running, one-on-one drills. I decided to watch those because look, I'm here for you guys. And at first I was like, damn, this dude gets open. But then I was like really watching, and these are one-on-one drills, right? So it's one receiver, one corner, and the whole wide open field. This is not how football works. And every time he got open, it was on like the 2nd or 3rd part of the route. It's like, dude, this isn't Etch-a-Sketch. Like if you're a slot receiver, you have to get open the first move. Like that's how it works. And he didn't. He never got open on the first move. Ever, 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 ever. He is not a wide receiver yet. He just isn't. If you can give him 6 seconds, he will get open. And newsflash, so will every other NFL wide receiver ever. So he's not there yet, but he's got some intriguing talents. He's nifty with the ball. He'll break some tackles, and he's got some speed. So if they can train him up, he could be fun. He could potentially compete in the return game, in my opinion. But no, this is not Quincy Rochet, day 1 contributor in the 6th round. Sorry, Browns. I have one more player.
All right.
Undrafted free agent. The Browns also signed a bunch, but the one that's getting the most splash and people are really excited about this kid is Marvin Wilson. So he got he's a defensive tackle from Florida State. Dane Brugler and Lance Zierlein, if you follow any of these NFL reporter guys, gave him a 5th round grade, and the Bleacher Report gave him a 3rd round grade. He's had some injuries, and he played pretty poorly in 2020, which most people attribute to him gaining too much extra weight and playing too slow. But in 2018 and 19, PFF had graded him over 90 at his position. And he went down to a 67 this past year. This kid was considered like a 1st round pick going into this year. So I watched his 2019 highlights. Just like Togiai, he's not getting pushed around. Like that's not happening. Doesn't matter, double team, single block. Like he holds his spot. He plays with a ton of power. He definitely can shoot gaps. And we're going to talk about this guy next week. The one time I saw him get pushed back was Jackson Carman, left tackle from Clemson. And I believe it was because Carman was able to get him at an angle because he was crashing inside. And he thought that Carman was going to go after the edge rusher, but instead he crashed down and he didn't see it coming. So look, most of us go backwards when we're not paying attention to the people that hit us at full speed. That's just a thing that happens. So I think it's pretty forgivable. So yeah, dude, if this guy can keep his weight down and, avoid injuries, I think he had a knee surgery or something. I don't know. Who cares? He got injured. He could actually compete again at a position that the Browns need a lot of competition in. So definitely a good signing. And we talked a little bit about the rules. The Browns did it, right? They guaranteed him $192,000 this year between his signing bonus and salary, which is more money than Donovan Peoples-Jones, 6th round pick last year, got guaranteed at his signing. So they're paying this guy like they drafted him. They wanted him on the team. So pretty. If you're a big time Browns fan, this is your deep dive to get excited about if you want to sound smart with your other Browns people.
What's his name again?
Marvin Wilson.
All right. There you go. Well, I hope everybody feels primed and ready for training camp for the Steelers and Browns here. That's the next step in 2.5-ish, 3 months. We'll see what happens between now and then. Mini camps, and we'll have some fun things like that where we get to know these rookies a little bit better, and it'll be a good old time. Unless you have anything else to add tonight.
We'll be back next week to talk about the Ravens and the Bengals. So we got to see the worst draft according to the experts and the best draft in the division this week. And now we can just talk about the middle. Next week, we'll all have our opinions. I think we all think that all of our drafts are the best. But yeah, Ravens and Bengals next week. So get ready for that. Get ready to learn about all the fun people.
We'll have clowns to the left of us, jokers to the right, and you'll be stuck in the middle talking Ravens and Bengals with the AFC Northcast.
That's right. And get ready to hear some serious smugness from one correctly predicted first-round pick.
And on that note, have a fantastic weekend, everybody, and we will see